Dean Martin's car garage never looked like it belonged to a singer.
So the grapes can grow and they can make more wine.
Instead, it looked like it belonged to a man who had never lived life on default settings. While everyone else in the 60s bought what the dealer recommended, Dean hunted for machines that felt like extensions of his personality. A hand-built Ghia that turned more heads than a movie premiere. A Continental so smooth it felt it was made especially for late-night drives after studio sessions. Even a custom Eldorado wagon that no one else dared to imagine. His garage did not just scream luxury, it showed taste, confidence, and rebellion parked side by side. Let's take a look at his exquisite car collection from the good old days. 1956 Lincoln Continental Mark II. The 1956 Lincoln Continental Mark II wasn't a luxury car in the usual sense. It was Ford saying, let's build something so refined that even the rich feel slightly underdressed next to it. And somehow, they pulled it off. The Mark II looked like it had been designed by people who whispered rather than argued. There was no tail fin attached, no chrome touches, just clean, sophisticated lines that made it look well carved and elegant. In an age of excess, this thing was practically spiritual. This was the most expensive American car of its era, priced at $10,000 to $14,000, depending on options, which was Rolls-Royce Phantom money in the mid-50s. And unlike most cars, the price wasn't inflated by hype. The car was nearly hand-built. Continental division employees inspected panels with white gloves, rejected anything less than perfect, and assembled each vehicle as if it were for a museum. Ford reportedly lost money on every single one. Under the hood sat a 368 cubic inch, 6-liter Y-block V8. Not a muscle car brawler, more a big, deep breath of torque that moved the Mark II with that unhurried, high-status confidence. No one drove a Mark II fast. They didn't need to. The car did the talking. So why Dean Martin? Because the Mark II was built for a particular type of fame, a quiet kind, the kind that didn't need screaming exhausts or chromed tail fins to announce its arrival. Its owners read like a mid-century royal guest list: Elvis, Frank Sinatra, Nelson Rockefeller, and Dean, who knew exactly what kind of message the car sent. It said, "I have already won, and I don't need to show off." The Mark II wasn't about flash, it was about control. It was the car version of a tailored suit that fits so well you forget it's there, until everyone else starts staring. And today, that understated confidence aged like crystal whiskey. Pristine examples comfortably hit $2 to $3 million at auction, not because they are, though only 3,000 pieces were built, but because no one has ever tried to create a car like this again. 1962 Ghia L6.4 Coupe. Up next on Martin's garage list is Ghia L6.4, a kind of car that made cameras turn before the driver opened the door. Built by Ghia in Italy on Chrysler Mechanicals, the L6.4 married Italian coachwork elegance with American V8 urgency. Sure enough, it was a recipe that screamed Hollywood from top to bottom. These cars used Chrysler's big 383 cubic inch, 6.3, 6.4 liter V8, giving the slender, sculpted body proper shove and shape. Since these automotive beasts were luxuriously hand-finished, they were automatically sold in extremely small numbers, which instantly made them a bait for celebrities. As for Martin's L6.4, the car didn't arrive stock. He, like several Rat Pack peers, had his example reworked by George Barris, Hollywood's king of customs, who added the kind of discreet but theatrical touches that read perfectly on camera. This included glossy deep paint, refined chrome treatments, distinctive headlight setups, and a full glass greenhouse that turned the coupe into a mini stage. A handful of L6.4s received Barris modifications, which is part of what makes Dean's example feel personal rather than pedestrian. Beyond looks, the L6.4 was a statement about taste. It didn't shout American muscle or Italian exotica. Instead, it suggested you had both worlds in your pocket. For Dean, that blended identity fit, an easygoing Midwestern crooner with a jet-set lifestyle. Today, surviving dual Ghia L6.4 coupes are prized by collectors for their rarity, coach-built pedigree, and celebrity provenance. Today, it is precisely the sort of car that auctions and specialist dealers treat like museum pieces rather than mere classics. If you want a car that reads like a 1960s movie still, the Ghia L6.4 is it. 1967 Ferrari 412P. Next, we have what we like to call the prototype rocket. The Ferrari 412P is not a boulevard cruiser. It's a distilled piece of Ferrari's prototype racing culture, made briefly street visible. Designed as a sports prototype, the 412P featured race-bred engineering, a compact, high-revving V12 with roughly 4 liters, mounted in an aerodynamically shaped body that prioritized speed and stability. Ferrari built these as track weapons, testing ground for ideas that would feed their competition cars. That DNA is obvious the moment you study the 412P's low nose, curved fenders, and functional vents. Why would a Hollywood star own such a thing? For Dean, it was a credibility flex. Ownership showed he loved cars on their own terms, not just as accessories. The 412P had the exact technical appreciation that Dean would go crazy over. The purchase of this iconic vehicle was not just a taste. It told people he understood power, precision, and provenance. That mattered in circles where cars were badges of character rather than mere transport. Mechanically and historically, the 412P is extremely rare. Ferrari produced only a handful of these prototypes, and surviving examples are mainly in museums or elite private collections. When one turns up at auction, it becomes a global headline, because then you are not just buying a car, you are buying a sliver of Ferrari's experimental history. For Dean, parking a 412P in his driveway meant aligning himself with a lineage of pure automotive obsession. 1973 Stutz Blackhawk 3. If the Ghia was subtle sculpture and the Ferrari was a racing manifesto, the Stutz Blackhawk 3 was unabashed theatricality, and Dean owned serial number 1. The revived Stutz of the 1970s combined flashy coach-built bodies, styled by Virgil Exner and hand-built in Italy, with tried-and-true GM mechanicals beneath, producing a car that looked like a 1930s nobleman's coupe reborn for the disco era. Early Stutz cars were deliberately exclusive, with prices and custom options pitched at celebrities and wealthy collectors. The Series 3 Blackhawk carried a commanding presence: a long hood, a faux spare tire hump trunk, freestanding headlamps, and interiors that read like luxury rooms on wheels, with Connolly leather, 24-karat gold trim, burled wood, and even liquor cabinets. Under that drama sat heavy-duty Pontiac and later GM V8s, often tuned into the 400-plus horsepower range, which gave the massive coach-built bodies a credible push on the road. For celebrities, Stutz was both luxury and performance. Owners like Elvis, Sinatra, and Dean used Stutz to differentiate themselves, since the cars were more showpiece than practical transport. Dean owning serial number 1 is historically meaningful because early serials build a strong origin. This was literally the first production example of a model whose very business plan was celebrity cachet. Today, Stutz Blackhawks are niche trophies in collections. They are still loud, rare, and unmistakably of their moment. 1976 Stutz Blackhawk. If luxury had a Hollywood costume, it would be the 1976 Stutz Blackhawk. It was scandalous, over the top, and absolutely unapologetic. By 1976, the company had been churning out Blackhawks for a few years, but this one stands out. It wore the famous vanity plate, Drunky, a cheeky nod to Dean Martin's stage personality. The plate moved with him across cars, and when this very Blackhawk was wrecked in a famous crash, the image of a damaged Blackhawk still bearing Drunky became part of the myth. Under that dreamy body were GM underpinnings, a Pontiac-based chassis, a big 455 Ci or similar V8, and a TH400 3-speed auto transmission. That supercharged nostalgia-look exterior, with its long hood, faux radiator grille, spare tire hump through the trunk lid, and freestanding headlamps, sat on very modern 70s-era mechanicals. On the inside, The vehicle had lamb wool carpets underfoot, plush Connolly leather seats, burl wood or redwood trim, a gold-plated steering wheel and dash, an optional minibar or liquor cabinet, power sunroof, AM/FM quadraphonic stereo, air conditioning, and more chrome than a spaceship. Why did Dean keep buying Stutz after Stutz? Because this wasn't about having elegance, it was about attitude. So the 1976 Blackhawk was not just a collectible for Dean. It held a special place because it was never quite messy and never quite boring. 1957 Ford Thunderbird. If the 1950s had a soundtrack, the 1957 Ford Thunderbird would be its coolest car. Ford built the first-generation Thunderbird from 1955 to 1957 to ride a fine line. Not a bare-bones sports car like a Corvette, but a personal luxury car, made for those who wanted style and comfort. Visually, the 57 T-Bird leaned into the jet-age dream. There were tail fins, a bold grille, a sleek wraparound windshield, a trunk that swallowed the spare tire discreetly, all the details that gave it a silhouette and swagger without tipping into being tastelessly showy. Under the hood, for those craving power, Ford offered a 312 cubic inch V8. Some versions delivered a healthy 245 horsepower. Others, especially with dual 4 barrels or even superchargers, pushed 270 to 300 horsepower. In fact, some rare F-code cars reportedly hit 300 horsepower with a Paxton supercharger. This blend of smooth cruiser comfort and genuine performance turned the Thunderbird into a perfect lounge cruise car, which was ideal for coastal drives, glamorous nights, or simply rolling up to a venue in style. For Dean, the Thunderbird sounded like a perfect fit. Confident, stylish, rebellious, but never flashy. It wasn't about shouting wealth, it whispered cool. More than 21,000 T-Birds were sold in 1957 alone, securing the model's place in 50s American car culture. In a way, it was the bachelor's answer to old money sedans, since they were sporty yet elegant, carefree yet refined. 1953 Cadillac Series 62 Coupe Deville. In the early 1950s, to drive a Cadillac meant you had made it. And for a legend like Dean Martin during his peak rise, the 1953 Cadillac Series 62 Coupe Deville was the kind of carriage that matched ambitions. Stately, smooth, and unmistakably elite. The Series 62 was Cadillac's mainstream luxury line, but the Coupe Deville hardtop elevated it. With a sleek roofline, pillarless design, and elegant proportions, the Deville was all about quiet sophistication. Interiors were soft, with leather seats, power windows, and even a self-winding clock and high-dramatic automatic transmission as standard gear by 1953. Under the hood was a 331 cubic inch overhead valve V8, producing 210 horsepower, considered impressive for its time. Paired with high-dramatic transmission, it offered a combo of respectable acceleration and effortless cruising, the kind of ride made for backroad drives or nighttime city rides. What made the 53 Coupe Deville perfect for a Hollywood star wasn't just its performance, it was its vibe. While sports cars and flashy exotics shouted glamour, the Cadillac had a softer way of showing it. It said, "I'm successful. I move in comfort. I don't need to prove it." For Dean, who balanced a laid-back public persona with serious ambition, that balance probably felt right. Over the years, the Cadillac Series 62 Coupe Deville has held up as a symbol of 1950s American optimism, with chrome, comfort, V8 power, and a kind of understated elegance that still turns heads today. 1960 Maserati 3500 GT Vignale Spider. Imagine smoky jazz lounges, Riviera sunsets, and an open road along the Mediterranean. That is the vibe of the Maserati 3500 GT Vignale Spider. For fans of European elegance and subtle power, this car was a dream. And for Dean Martin, with a partly Italian heritage and partly Hollywood charm, it no doubt felt like home on wheels. Launched in 1960, the 3500 GT Spider was Maserati's answer to the growing demand for grand touring sophistication. Sleek coach-built steel body by Vignale, a shortened wheelbase for agility, and a beautifully balanced inline-6 engine with twin-cam DOHC, triple Weber carburetors, producing around 220 horsepower. That gave it a top speed in the ballpark of 215 to 220 kilometers per hour, with a serious performance by 1960 standards. Maserati built only a few hundred of the Vignale Spiders, around 242 were made, making it rare by nature. For a collector, especially one who appreciates both engineering and elegance, it's a jewel, the kind of car that ages like wine. In Dean's garage, the 3500 GT Spider would have been that soft-spoken brushstroke. It was basically another one of his ways to tell the world, I know finesse. 1967 Lamborghini Miura P400. The Lamborghini Miura P400 wasn't just a cool car, it rewired the entire idea of what a fast car could be. Before the Miura, supercars weren't a thing. Fast cars existed, yes, but nothing combined beauty, engineering audacity, and, I don't care if this kills me, make it faster, energy like this one. Ferruccio Lamborghini basically gave his young engineers permission to be unhinged, and they delivered. A mid-engine V12 mounted sideways like a giant piece of mechanical jewelry stuffed behind the seats. No one had done this in a road car before. Ferrari thought it was irresponsible. Lamborghini thought it was fun. Dean clearly agreed. The Miura was wild even by Hollywood standards. 0 to 60 in the mid 6-second range in the 60s? Top speed over 170 miles per hour? That was space shuttle behavior for the era. Dean Martin didn't just buy expensive things. He bought things that screamed, yeah, I know exactly what the future looks like. Design-wise, Marcello Gandini gave the Miura a shape so outrageous that even when stationary, it looked like it was breaking the speed limit. The eyelashes around the headlights were entirely Hollywood-inspired, and the curves of the car were mainly built to steal the spotlight. And here is the most incredible modern twist. Dean's actual Miura, chassis 3586, now lives in Jay Leno's garage, meaning it went from Dean's hands to one of the most respected collectors in the world. That is legendary lineage because it got passed from a Rat Pack to a comedy king and then to a global automotive royalty. Owning a Miura wasn't something small. It was Dean saying, I'm not just a star, I'm ahead of every trend you haven't even imagined yet. Out of all the cars he owned, this one might be the most Dean Martin of them all. Confident, smooth, beautifully loud, and effortlessly iconic. 1970 Cadillac Eldorado station wagon. Casa de Eldorado. Think about this. Someone looks at a massive 1970 Cadillac Eldorado with a front-wheel drive luxury land yacht and says, let's turn it into a station wagon. That is madness. That is Hollywood. That is Dean Martin. The Casa de Eldorado was not a regular car. It wasn't even a Cadillac option. This thing was coach-built, meaning a custom shop literally cut, reshaped, and rebuilt the body by hand. As expected, the result was a one-of-one Cadillac Eldorado wagon with the style of a Hollywood bachelor and the practicality of, well, someone who wanted to roll up to golf courses with a full bar in the back. At the time, the Eldorado was Cadillac's high-tech flagship. It had a 500 cubic inch, 8.2-liter V8, the biggest production engine in American history. Dean took that foundation and said, okay, but what if it was even more me? So the car became a weird, playful hybrid. Half luxury lounge, half family wagon, but with all attitude restored in its place. Inside, it wasn't just roomy. It was specially built for Dean's lifestyle with plush seating, deep carpets, and that effortless Cadillac ride that felt like a moving living room. The kind of car you buy when you are rich enough that practicality becomes a luxury of its own. The kind of thing you only understand once you see it and go, yeah, okay, Dean would totally drive that. 1972 Cadillac Estate Wagon. Here's a fun fact. Cadillac did not make station wagons in the 70s. If you see one, it's custom, meaning someone paid serious money to have a coach builder transform their big luxury sedan into a wagon. Dean Martin didn't just own one. He made it a personality trait. The 1972 Cadillac Estate Wagon was huge, plush, and incredibly impractical in the best way possible. Why? Because Cadillac's whole identity was prestige. not practicality. Turning one into a wagon was like asking a 5-star chef to make a grilled cheese, which sounds technically simple, but is hilarious in context. These wagons usually started life as Fleetwood or sedan Deville models. Then companies like ASC or Wisco chopped off the back, extended the roofline, added tailgates, and created something that looked like it belonged either at a movie premiere or in a presidential motorcade. The engine was a 472 or 500 cubic inch V8, the kind of motor that idled like a sleeping dragon and drank fuel like it was being paid to. Inside, it was Cadillac at peak drama, with thick seats, yards of wood trim, a sculpted dashboard, and enough space to host a small Rat Pack reunion. Why did Dean love wagons? Honestly, because they fit his life. He was a father, a golfer, a man constantly carrying people, equipment, gifts, and jokes, and he liked to do all of that while riding in unapologetic comfort. Wagons gave him space without sacrificing swagger. Today, these coach-built Cadillac wagons sit in the collector curiosity zone. They are incredibly rare, historically fascinating, and instantly tied to the culture of high-rolling 70s entertainers. People don't buy them for speed. They buy them because they scream personality, and Dean had that more than anyone. And that's Dean Martin's Garage, a collection that made one thing painfully clear. The man didn't just have taste, he had instinct. Every car he owned said something about who he was at that exact moment in his life. From the quiet confidence of the Continental Mark II, to the unhinged drama of the Stutz era, to the engineering flexes like the Ferrari 412P and Miura, Dean didn't follow trends. He set the pace, turned left when everyone else went right, and somehow managed to look good doing it. If this video made you look at classic Hollywood or classic cars a little differently, you already know what's coming next. Hit the like button, subscribe, drop a comment telling me which Dean Martin car shocked you the most, and share this with someone who thinks old cars are boring. Trust me, after this lineup, they won't say that again.